we're reporting today on the book Perfecting the Brand of American Medicine. It's a 3-book set. I have a conflict of interest, where I was the author and also publisher. America has the best physicians the world has ever known. Perfecting the Brand of American Medicine is about recognizing the need for subspecialization, particularly in non-physician functions, towards increasing life expectancy. Not perfection, nor brands, nor medicine occur together on accident or by chance. These take human-centered design, empathy, harmony, patience planning, and proof. Perfection presents increasingly through the maths of medical science and medical algorithms. Perfection can be costly with technology, or it can be free, such as caring, in that ancient tradition of caring. Perfection can be complete with other priorities, other economic activities, but we should not leave anyone behind on this journey for curing illness, eradicating disease, and increasing life expectancy. We need your help in the search for truth on this dredging of a channel against the prevailing current of nature, upstream against a fabled fountain of youth. Anthropologically, we have not been a perfecting medicine species, but that's what we should become. Thomas Hobbes warned of life in anarchy, the life of man, solitary, short, nasty, brutish, in short. We need your help perfecting the brand of American medicine today, where life expectancy in America has waned for 7 years, punctuated by COVID-19, after a historic run-up in life expectancy. The American dominance in global affairs of the expansion of markets, of scientific progress, and the medical science ecosystem of extending life expectancy and improving quality of life rests upon you and me and us. Brand quality, which is in Chapter 3 of Perfecting the Brand of American Medicine, does not commonly occur or persist. Brand quality has to be supervised. Humankind will need the supervisor on duty, Chapter 4, all the way up to a chief expectations officer, as long as there's bedside care, as long as there are physical exam rooms between the physician and the patient, and as long as we have entities dedicated to the centralized delivery of medical care. These hubs that we today call hospitals and we call clinics. We are not automobiles, Chapter 7. We are not cell phones. We are not widgets. Humankind is more complicated than the things we've manufactured up to this point. Americans will be leading expect, which is our quality management methodology, which is Book 2 of Perfecting the Brand of American Medicine. Americans will be leading expect to local perfection until we have dispelled from caregiving professions each and every myth from the mechanistic change management religions intended for making these inanimate objects. Mostly, I want to convince you that there's a union of the medical care patients want and the medical care patients need at a sample size of one. One patient, one physician. We must confront the false promises of value-based care and the hypothetical constructs of the so-called virtuous cycle. I'd like to convince you that the Allies won World War II. That we happened to bomb the Japanese into submission. We didn't ask for that. We don't need lean management. We don't need Toyota to give our country and our people lectures about what is wasteful. That happens to be a government that built its cities out of straw and wood and chose to bomb a country, which is our country, which is made of steel and brick, and failing in the parable of the 3 little pigs. Mostly, I want to convince you that America won World War II, and we don't need lectures on the Iron Age from people that built their cities out of straw and out of wood. And I mean that in the nicest possible way, because we love Japanese people. We happen to love Japanese Americans. We asked them to, join us in our, the Iron Age, which is the most American movement. Like we were already here. Like we already had the Iron Age. We didn't need somebody to, a federal bureaucrat to come in and explain what iron was to us. We already had the Iron Age in 1941, in 1942. We famously brought the Iron Age back to Japan to teach the government a lesson to never do it again. And there's some people in Japan that think that somehow Japan didn't lose the war, that we somehow owe something to Toyota or owe something in lean management, and we don't. They were on the wrong side of the war. They were dumb. They failed the parable of the three little pigs. We famously negotiated a surrender. We had superior technology and still do. We don't need lectures on what science, technology, what math is from Toyota. They're on the wrong side of World War II. In one of the few entities in the whole world that was. And so I want to release you of your cognitive dissonance that you did anything right by believing in Toyota or believing in lean. Because those guys built their cities out of straw and wood and then bombed a city of a people who built their cities out of iron and out of steel. Failed the three parables of the three little pigs. What's wasteful? My question for Toyota is what's wasteful? We think that Pearl Harbor was wasteful. Those of you that are lean management Kaizen experts, what's wasteful? We think Pearl Harbor was wasteful. We don't have to get a group together to analyze it. Toyota didn't know what it was doing, is making trucks for the Japanese Imperial Army to try to enslave people on the mainland and enslave the people in Polynesia. That's something that we don't believe. We believe it's fundamentally wasteful. We don't think that Toyota has anything to teach the rest of the world. Toyota, in a matter of speaking, can shut up and go back and sit down. We'll take it from here. We already had it. We're a people that, we domesticated the horse. If you look back anthropologically, Japan missed the first two Iron Ages. Welcome. We're glad that you made it to the fourth one. You don't need to lecture us on what iron or steel is. We've been doing it for 50,000 years. Perfection must be measured wisely at the sample size of the individual. In the United Kingdom, they use the word maths as a plural, which provides multiple entry points for individuals into the field. In America, we use math as a singular, which has the unfortunate effect of some individuals in healthcare turning away from science in their profession, sometimes based on one disappointing math experience or one kind of math. There are others narrowly focused on algebra who neglected lifetime value of physicians or the lifetime value of patients. And I'm saying that in the nicest possible way of, Harvard-trained individuals in the healthcare quality industry that don't put the price of a medical education in the replacement of a hip, as if hip replacements just spontaneously happened. In perfecting the brand of American medicine, we know, because we invented the modern hip replacement. There are other people that do it in the world, bless them. We're the ones that said that patient can be put down with low dose and no dose narcotics. We don't have to turn off their GI system to replace their hip. We're the ones that said that, in this day surgery revolution, that we could have our patients wag their tail and want to go home the same day from a hip replacement. That's an entirely American idea. It didn't exist anywhere in the world before 1983. Perfection integrates quality and finance. That's chapter 7. Of here we're talking about perfecting the brand of American medicine. Perfection integrates quality and finance. You can't do these separate. You can't do quality on Monday and do finance on Tuesday. It's the same thing. Quality and finance are one thing. I elaborate on that based on my grandfather, Frank Petoulas, who worked at the American La France fire engine factory, which, by the way, we've been working with iron and steel since the 1830s. We don't need lectures from Japan or from Toyota on how to manage with iron and steel. We've been doing it since the 1830s. We're glad that you guys were able to make it into the fourth Iron Age. We'll take it from here. Perfection integrates quality and finance. Like I say, the fundamental flaw of this false dichotomy is that a quality human service may be priced higher. The roster of people that you need, in chapter 10, of the people, pride, and the quality of training are reasons that entities like the Ritz-Carlton charge more. We know, in America, because we have a remarkable tradition of segmentation. I happen to be descended from Jean Esprit Radisson. He was a fur trader. He was a French fur trader who took English covenant paper to come to America and start the fur trade. He's basically the founder of Canada. Happens to be. He's not attributed in that particular way in many history books, but should. Jean Esprit Radisson is an incredibly important character because he was a Frenchman with English covenant paper. And so some of the tradition in Canada of being both French and English traces back to him. For those of you that wondered why that was, it traces back to one bright guy that saw relations with French and British made sense. Not all perfection arises from the individual effort or individual accountability. Peer review. Again, I happen to have started an idea of Krebs topology. Those of you that are studied in medical science and medicine might be familiar with the Krebs cycle. I innovated this idea of the Krebs topology, where a close review of Krebs was that Krebs identified not a cycle, but a topology that had reversible steps. His theory was not concluded correctly. When there's reversible steps, it's a topology and not a cycle. It's important because the reversible steps in the Krebs cycle explain a lot of important metabolic processes in Homo sapiens, and we've been training our physicians wrong. The Krebs cycle is so important. The Krebs cycle is a part of our largest organ in our body by surface area that I call Jotine. That's available in my book series on metabolic topology, which again describes the pH-intervened reversibility of the Krebs cycle, which happens to be incredibly important, in every medical science field. Peer review is valuable in and out of healthcare. For those of you that have any medical scientists or physicians, I encourage you to message back and disagree with me if you think that the Krebs cycle is a cycle only. There's times in history when you see a scientist who's remarkable. Hans Krebs is a freaking genius. I have incredible respect for him. His data happen to be correct. His conclusions happen to be wrong. His data showed that the Krebs cycle was reversible at multiple steps. Contemporary studies show that it's reversible by pH, that pH is the thing that intervenes in reversibility of the Krebs cycle. That's remarkably important. I'm a competitive swimmer. Those of us that are competitive swimmers intuitively know that our system, our body works differently, anaerobically from aerobically. But at a cellular level, it's important because it's not simply a cycle. That mitochondria is able to do reversible work intervened by pH. There's individuals in other sports that might be able to make that conclusion. I know competitive swimmers who spend a lot of breathing work are quickly able to identify that the aerobic direction is entirely different from the anaerobic direction qualitatively. And more importantly, that it's not actually the aerobic condition as much as it is the pH and the spontaneity at each spot in your body, which is, as a swimmer, you can feel individual body systems changing, which is a topic I elaborate on in my 3-book series, Metabolic Topology, also on sale at profi.me. I'll continue going here with Perfecting the Brand American Medicine, or reading the introduction. Not all perfections arise from competition. That's from chapter 1. There are spontaneous improvements, for example, inventions, or medical licensure that improve life for all of us forever for the better. A fundamental flaw of competition is it was not competition between the medieval mystics that gave rise to medicine. It was a rebirth of wonder in the medical sciences and a very specific licensing of physician quality, coupled with those rises in medical science. Not all Americans know, but you should, that 2/3 of America's medical schools were shut down after 1910. Literally 2/3 of them were shut down. There was not a competition between medieval mystics and medical clairvoyance that resulted in the upward trend in life expectancy and this movement, this Hippocratic movement in America, this movement that America leads, this movement of American science, this movement of American medicine atop all the world. It was not competition between those clairvoyants and mystics with their pointy hats, but an elevation in consistency and standard in training and segmentation of licensure, which is important because physicians, medical scientists, we learn through direct work, through experimentation, through the empirical method, something I elaborate on here. There's other professions that we call peers. I'll pick on the legal profession. The legal profession doesn't learn through empirical statistics. People don't learn law today by studying public health statistics and saying, what are the policies? What are the natural law? What's the medical science law? What's the medical law? What's the physician orders that can make this better? Instead, Barber Association attorneys, or we call them Bar Association attorneys or lawyers, those that happen to go to a Bar Association law school that's accredited by the same entity that's a membership organization, doesn't have a tradition of empirical study, doesn't have a tradition of reviewing public health tables, doesn't have a tradition of using the Baconian method. There were lawyers before the Civil War that were actual empirical scientists. They were part of our movement. It was a part of the Hippocratic movement. They were superior in horses. We're natural law. If you happen to have been a shepherd, a horse surgeon, a veterinarian, a doctor, you were also a lawyer. It was the predicate for practicing law. Instinctively, people know that physicians are better trained than attorneys are for natural law. And part of why we don't get the outcomes in medical law, in federal law and state law, is because we have a trade association called the Bar Association that, after Civil War construction and all of their racist beliefs about people that were inferior to them, that all of us would be embarrassed and disgusted by if we reviewed what the Bar Association was founded by, was post-Civil War Reconstruction. And literally, we don't need to have a single Bar Association law school in America. The Bar Association is one of the biggest embarrassments of Civil War Reconstruction, and happens to also be the accreditor for law schools and the membership organization, which determines the test for getting into the field. That, in another field, if you said that you could only get cement in New York, if it was a accredited cement school, and said that you could only practice cementing if you were a member of the Cement Guild, and that you had to pass the test for the cement bar, that's called a RICO violation. And that's what the mob does. What's bizarre is that our bar associations are a walking RICO violation in plain sight, because it is an elaborate circular fraud where there is no natural law underneath the profession of attorneys. There's no medical science. How did you study law? I read it. You read it. What kind of studies did you do? We don't do we had law review. What was that? Well, we would read about an outcome in a case, and then we would debate it. Is that what natural law is? It isn't. No. Are you ready to practice law? No. If you go to a research institution and you ask somebody that has a master's degree or a peer-reviewed scientist about natural law, they'll explain natural law to you to the extent that they know it, and they'll hedge and caveat how far their training is able to extend them. I've never seen a Bar Association attorney do the same. The Bar Association folks are the emperor that has no clothes in America. All of our public health entropy in America originates from the fact that the Bar Association doesn't train its people on public health, doesn't train them on empirical tables, doesn't engage them in empirical study, and instead are wearing long robes as if they're the long robe surgeons, which is that's an important signal of quality. If you look back at the movement of medical science and the movement of America and this movement of English, because the long robe is reserved for the surgeon. The long robe is reserved for the highest trained medical scientist. The short robe is what Bar Association attorneys are. That's what Bar Association attorneys should wear. The short robe is barbershops. That's what we let barbers do. How did you learn it? Well, I learned it. I read it. Oh, you did? Okay. You read about being a barber, you can be a barber. But you can't pull out people's teeth anymore. You're saying, like, we're going to have an actual profession with an empirical science on dentistry. We're going to have those folks that engage in years and years and years of empirical study and learning about dentistry do dentistry from now on. So you guys are going to do what's left of being a barber. And that's part of why our public health statistics aren't good in America. That's why our life expectancy is ebbing. That's why Americans are inherently disappointed in their elected officials, is that we've put this whole group of people that have absolutely no medical training, no medical science training of any kind, into long robes. And none of them belong in any like short robe or higher. We have the best physicians the world has ever known. Occasionally you'll have a physician wander into a policy decision, and anybody that doesn't stop and listen is a buffoon. Because physicians will do the same caveating of, well, my medical specialty is this. My residency is here. My fellowship gets me here. I'll tell you what I can say. I'll tell you what I think. I'll tell you what I feel. I'll tell you what I believe. And listen for your governor, your senator, to explain what they think, they feel, and believe, and explain why. Explain what training. Was he empirical training? Who did you study under? Who is the program director there? What were the public health outcomes there? Where did you report those outcomes? Where can we see them? And see, that's fundamentally what's missing, which is part of why we founded the Sir Henry Vaughan College of Knights here in New Hampshire, which we're accepting students, as a part of this movement, the Perfecting the Brand of American Medicine movement. We entertain folks from both political parties. Amy Klobuchar, Chris Christie, you're both welcome to enroll. We know that it's not a Democrat movement, it's not a Republican movement, it's a movement for public health. The reason that elected officials are disappointed with their work, and the reason that citizens are disappointed with their elected officials, is that you guys were reading lawyers, and you were dressed up in a long robe when you have short robe training or less. And so we're willing to, put you back to books on what empirical science is, on how to perfect the brand of American medicine. What did I say? I have the slightest conflict of interest on it. I don't have any strongly held feelings on it. I disclosed my conflicts of interest at the beginning, which, again, that's another touching thing about medical science and physicians. But the Krebs topology happens to be important, since we end up, I happen to be so fascinated in medical science. I happen to think that this idea is so important, with obesity and diabetes, that when we ask, my peers, and I love physicians, don't fall into the furtive fallacy of thinking that we have bad physicians in America, because we don't. We have excellent physicians. But when you query physicians and ask, what is it that results in body fat being reduced from the Homo sapien body? Over half of physicians answer it wrong. The right answer is basically that your body exhales the carbon in carbon dioxide. Your body's breathing in oxygen and exhales carbon dioxide, which makes sense. That's why a lot of physicians suggest low-intensity exercise, is that that's how your body loses weight. But over half of American physicians happen to answer that question wrong. And I shouldn't pick on everybody. Family medicine. Over half of family medicine happen to answer that question wrong. Which, again, we love family medicine. But partially it traces back to their training, that they're trained on this Krebs cycle that supposedly does this circular aerobic thing that somehow goes and replenishes. And that isn't how the body works. I think it's one of the most important theories for Americans to understand, for American policymakers to understand. That's why, I happen to be evangelizing it through my book and through my College of Knights. We'll look here. This happens to be part of the topic that we're describing, is female life expectancy. Over here, female life expectancy on the right side has increased across Western nations at that rate. That's how good we've done. We've doubled life expectancy in 100 years. Who did that? Medical scientists did that. Physicians did that. Louis Pasteur did that. Jonas Salk did that. there's not a Bar Association attorney that you could point to that made a major dent in that, other than my homie and yours, Mike Cerisi, the guy that litigated Big Tobacco back in Minnesota. We thought he did a pretty good job. He's a guy that's welcome to come teach at the Serenity Vaughn College of Knights. We think that he did a good job. There it is. That happens to be my theory. It's the Krebs topology. So you can see the bridges are reversible. That happens to be incredibly important. For those of you that are diabetic, for those of you that have any kind of metabolic disease, obesity, this is the thing that you can have a discussion with your physician or your nurse about, is what are the things over the whole day that change in your body that can help you be free of diabetes or lose weight. Those are the kinds of things that Americans care about. And it fundamentally traces back to your largest organ. Where is it? It's everywhere. It's mitochondria. It happens to be a second operating system in your body. Many of you know from biology that you get all of your DNA from mom and dad through a combination of DNA. Mitochondria, Jotine, as I call it, is is an organ. It should be described as an organ. Is the name of the organ where Krebs topology or metabolic topology is the science, which we happen to just be on the cusp of correctly describing how pH changes, how acidity and bases in your food and in your body happen to change the spontaneity of those metabolic reactions and happen to be central to the obesity epidemic. And so we want you to join us in this Perfecting the Brand American Medicine, in understanding and evangelizing the medicine, peer reviewing and criticizing. If there are those of you that think that the Krebs cycle is a one-directional cycle that never reverses, I want you to write to me, because I'm willing to hear that. I'm willing to hear any rational argument for that. I know that it's not, because I've swam 10,000 meters. I've done sets, like of 300s, of 200s. I know that your body at different pHs fundamentally changes how it responds. I know the sensation of burning, and different medical scientists will disagree of what causes that burning sensation in your muscles. But, metabolism is a topology. It has reversible steps that's intervened by pH. This comes right out of my book, Perfecting the Brand American Medicine. I think the most important book in America for physicians, for policymakers, for governors, for senators. Bernie Sanders, I'd be willing to debate Bernie Sanders on the relative merits of his political ideology. I built the single-payer system in California at Kaiser Permanente. We consolidated all the fee schedules into one fee schedule. All California had to do back in 2007 was get rid of all the competition. Bernie Sanders is in the wrong job for universal health care. You can be the governor of Vermont. I insist. You can be the governor of Vermont and implement a single-payer system in Vermont. Shows how easy it is. I happen to have done it in California, just short of eliminating all the competition, and it wasn't that easy. We had a lot of really skilled people that were a part of making that happen. You need to understand fundamentally at the procedure level everything that we do in medicine. That is the task at hand. And so going out and setting false expectations for young people is totally unacceptable. And you have to totally, fundamentally change. And again, I'll debate you on it. I'll debate you anytime, anywhere. I'd even give you Amy Klobuchar. I'd even give you Chris Christie to support your side. And I promise you that I'd bury both of you. Because, again, we fought a Cold War over the idea of socialism. And I built a single-payer system in California. And you've been talking about it. There's a lot of us out there that are actually doing it. Now, single-payer happens to not be the option for 300 million people. That's not what the European Union is doing. If you ask the people in France, what we should do is we should do away with our local healthcare system and let, Brussels decide everything for us. They don't say that, do they? The Germans don't say, we shouldn't have our payment system set in Germany for how we do in Germany. We should let Brussels decide that. They don't do that, do that. But Bernie Sanders lies to his people, goes out on the Senate floor, and lectures us on, like, literally the philosophy that, Premier Brezhnev gave up on in the 70s. Mikhail Khrushchev, Mikhail Gorbachev gave up on it. In the 80s, he called it perestroika. Earth to Bernie Sanders, welcome to the 1980s. Socialism didn't work. Healthcare is local. You're in the wrong job. Run for governor of Vermont and just implement it. It would be spectacularly difficult. I'd be willing to show you how to do it. When you get to the point where there's 2 players left in the community and you have to totally do away with them, you'll decide, maybe we should leave the competition there. Because the competition is part of what makes it great. And that's what we're talking about in perfecting the brand American medicine. No disrespect to Chris Christie or Amy Klobuchar, because they're talented people. But I'm giving him an option on either side. I happen to publish the data, the most important statistic that we never talk about the experiment of socialism in East Germany. Earth to Bernie Sanders. In East Germany, when the Berlin Wall went up, right? Because again, in 1961, East Germany built a wall all the way around West Berlin. Because in West Berlin, they thought that people could have 2 or more choices in healthcare. We fundamentally thought that you could have 2 or more choices in healthcare. In East Germany, the Marxist regime said there's only going to be one option for everything. Do you understand? One option and one option only. And how did that turn out? The doctors in private practice in East Germany in 1965 was 2,524, which was over a third of German doctors in East Germany. Over a third of them were in private practice. That number by 1989, when the wall came down, plummeted to 2%. Where did all the private doctors go in East Germany? The wall was a reminder that there's a different place that we could go. And so the East Germans, who were able to safely do it, went to West Berlin, went to West Germany, died trying, or they had to join the socialist system with one option for people. And we fundamentally disagree with that. Americans fundamentally disagree with that. People in California disagree with it. People in New York disagree with it. People in Texas disagree with it. Texas isn't going to spontaneously become France. Texas would be willing to build a better system for Texans, but they're not interested in becoming France. And even France isn't going to give up their autonomy and their sovereignty to Brussels to make the decisions for everybody. We'll debate it. Perfecting the brand of American medicine. We think building great healthcare brands is the future of America. We think that delivering options for consumers is fundamentally better. Not just 2 or more options,